Abbott gets quite farmed on this Meepo. Nature's Prophet and Spirit Breaker aren't exactly heroes that are well equipped to deal with a late game Meepo, so this pick could work either way for DC. We'll see if they somehow make it work. And you can see they're beginning to ban some Meepo counters. They start with this Sven. And some other heroes that are good against Meepo are heroes like Earthshaker, Axe, Winter Wyvern particularly.
Was just about to ask that question too. Tip of my tongue and you read my mind. Sven banned out, Sardar banned out, bold move, see if it pays off, and now Underlord banned out by Complexity. Is Meepo, you've got Nature's Prophet and Spirit Breaker, two heroes that can kind of move globally around the map. Is that going to affect Meepo at all, trying to farm the jungle if they do play some nice wards?
I think the gameplay that defines Meepo is you come out of the laning phase, like level 3 or 5, you start jungling, your team makes stacks, they make space for you. Meepo at level 5 and beyond that, he's like one of the fastest or one of the most efficient farmers in the early mid game. And so sort of this Meepo game plan is you come out of laning phase, you farm, you jungle, you get your blink, you get your diffusal, your dragonlance, whatever you were looking for as your secondary item, and then you start looking for kills, And there's a lot of easy kills for Meepo on the map right now. I mean, Nature's Prophet, Nature's Prophet and Puck particularly are easy kills for Meepo, so I can see a scenario, or the ideal game for DC is, at minimum, they break even in all of their lanes, and then the Meepo hits this blink timing that's just so much faster than the Puck's Yule's timing, or the Puck's blink timing, that, the Meepo just starts taking over the game. But again, there's like two ways to deal with the Meepo, right? Either you prevent him from getting good item timings, or you actually find a way to fight into him in the mid to late game.
And so they've got Puck, Spirit Breaker, and Nature's Prophet to try and ease the stress of fast farming Meepo. Is there something that's available right now with this pick that Complexity could pick up to really try and stymie the Meepo?
Maybe I think instead of focusing on stymieing the Meepo specifically, focus on winning the lanes just like Complexity did last game, right? I mean, if you're somehow in order to sort of stop Meepo from farming, you have to be able to be ahead in almost all of the lanes, just so that all of your heroes are in a condition to pressure the map and sort of fight into the DC lineup. And so, instead of thinking of like specific counters to the Meepo in lane, maybe pick heroes that are strong in the early game. Like Complexity's lineup so far is quite good in the early game. But DC, they feel like they have heroes that sort of just stall out the game a little bit. Jakiro, Earthshaker, Silencer, they all have ways to spam out waves if Complexity decide to push. And then now DC sort of have this excellent teamfight combination with Earthshaker and Silencer.
It almost seems like you've forced Complexity into picking this Winter Wyvern, where we've seen so many times before that Winter Wyvern just is almost detrimental to the team it's on. And, it just seems like DC's lineup is way better than Complexity's just 4 picks in.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, the last time I've seen DC play Meepo was probably pre-TI. I mean, he may have played it before that, but at least from what I've seen, it was pre-TI. And so, the game's changed a little bit since then. There might be another core pickup that Complexity can get that will just completely counter the Meepo, or maybe DC can pick up a core hero for themselves that will really solidify their ability to win this game. Because I think with their game plan, with DC's game plan right now, it seems like their team fight sort of counters Complexity's team fight just because of the global, because of the instant initiation from the Earthshaker. And so, the game plan for DC is to get their items on Meepo, and then the Meepo will start instantly killing anyone on Complexity, because none of Complexity's heroes can sort of survive this mid-game burst from the Meepo. The first Meepo blinks in, and then the other ones poof in, and it's just a ton of physical damage on top of the Earthbind. So Complexity, they sort of have to stay on top of DC at all stages in the game, and if DC ever gets slightly ahead, I think they're just going to be in a much better position.
Yeah, it really comes down to this last pick for Complexity to kind of turn it around. DC thinking about their last ban. They have the first pick coming into this phase. They ban out the Clinks. Now we'll see what they go with to round up this draft. You've got the mid Meepo, the offlane Jakiro, 4 Earthshaker, 5 Silencer most likely. Still up in the air, could be a 4 Jakiro, offlane Earthshaker. They do need a safe laner here for DC. Could we see something, you know, maybe like a CK come out, or is that just too much like farm and too much illusion?
I'm almost tempted to say that DC will pick up a hero like Weaver, or just something that Mason's super comfortable with, something that can help make space for the Meepo for the first like 7 to 10 levels. And so a hero like Weaver kind of works well against Complexity's lineup, just because the only ways they catch the Weaver right now is really with the Spirit Breaker. And so I think DC definitely win this in the mid game. So they want,
there it is.
Yeah, they want heroes that help the Meepo achieve what the Meepo wants to, or they want heroes that help make space for the Meepo, so the Meepo can actually hit his item timings at a good time. Because, you know, Meepo, just like heroes like Anti-Mage and Alchemist, Meepo isn't a hero that likes to play behind or even on equal footing with the enemy team, and so the heroes are sort of balanced on being able to farm extremely quickly, being able to split up the map really well. And so the more space that DC create for this Meepo, the bigger of an advantage that Abed can get. And we all know that, you know, Abed on Meepo is sort of a beast, so he'll definitely be able to get a lot done. But Complexity at the same time, you know, if they manage to hit their timing, hit their stride before DC, they can definitely do a lot of damage, especially with such a push oriented lineup. You know, Drow Ranger, Nature's Prophet, Puck, all heroes that are they're all heroes that are sort of oriented for early game aggression. So we'll see how Complexity fare in game 2.
Yeah, so Complexity, they end up rounding out the draft with Drow Ranger. Chessie is going to be on that, Drow Z Freak on the Winter Wyvern, Limp on the Puck, Kyle on that Spirit Breaker, and finally Moo to round it off with that Nature's Prophet in the offlane, Mason, safe lane Weaver, Bulba on that Silencer, Moo Meander on the Earthshaker, Op-Ed, of course, on that Meepo, and Jakiro being played by MSS. So we'll get into this. Get into this game 2 between Complexity and DC. DC playing for their lives. Complexity looking to finish it off 2-0.
Yeah, certainly both teams sort of have the tools to deal with the opponent. I mean, Drow's not a hero that does particularly well against Meepo, so you could sort of say that Complexity are kind of all-inning with their draft, especially with this Drow pick, because Drow's like one of the worst heroes in my opinion against Meepo. You know, you can't really get away from the Meepo. Meepo's a hero that buys Blink and wants to like be in melee range of you, so that marksmanship aura or that marksmanship ultimate from Drow's a little bit less effective. So I think what it really comes down to this game is really just the blink timing on Abed on this Meepo. And so I think whoever really wins that first team fight that results in the Roshan will have sort of a huge upper hand this game, just because you know, if Abed picks up the Aegis at a good time, the game just sort of ends for Complexity.
And we'll have to see how well Complexity do in this early game. There is quite a bit of push that comes from DC in both the Meepo and the Jakiro. Like you said, those first couple of fights are going to be very important, as well as the first Roche. I feel like with an Aegis on the side of DC, you can see definitely 2, maybe 3 towers just get demolished by DC quickly.
You can see Moon Meanders on the Earthshaker this game. Well, he's going to be moving around a lot with 3 Clarities and Boots of Speed, so really he's going to be this early playmaker for his team, and there's really not a lot of kill potential he can get, so I think most of what Moon Meander is going to be doing this game is preventing his heroes from getting picked off, at least until the Meepo hits level 3, because I think Meepo does have a lot of kill potential on Puck, but he needs the levels first.
So he's going to be Op-Ed on this Meepo up against the Limp. We'll see how he does in the early goings of this game. They've got Moomiander sitting a little bit behind Op-Ed over mid. don't think he's going for a block of any kind. He's just going to let these creeps move on forward, but we'll have to see how Oped deals with Limp in the early couple of levels, and we'll see if Moomiander kind of stays nearby or not.
Yeah, and this is a Drow, Aura, Puck, and Nature's Prophet, so Complexity should have advantage in these two solo lanes.
So right away the charge comes through on Mason. They actually get a nicely placed fissure that'll block Kyle out from getting back towards his side. A nice body block comes in from Moomiander, and now it looks as though the Spirit Breaker might be in trouble. You've got the Arcane Curse on 3 of these heroes. Moomiander very low, down to 25 health, not going to be picked off, so First Blood still not taken by either side.
And DC sort of win this exchange, right? They're making Complexity use way more regen items. I mean, the Spirit Breaker's out of regen items and is half HP, so DC sort of in a good position this lane. I think in a couple of levels, if Complexity don't sort of start chipping away at Mason or any of these supports, Complexity might be in a little bit of trouble in this lane, especially since both pulls are available for Bulba.
And over mid, Oped surviving with 19 health. And just survives one more shot from Limp, would have been enough, but now he's got that second Meepo for him, so not exactly a solo lane anymore. We'll have to see how now with the Meepo going back to heal when he comes back, how they're going to handle this mid puck over for Oped on the side of DC.
So just because DC have sort of survived the first 2 minutes, I think they're on track to achieving their win condition, just because Complexity have to get a lot more done in this early game than DC in order to win this game, and just the nature of Complexity's lineup requires sort of a snowball leading into the 10-minute mark.
So, up against Moo, you take a look at the Jakiro, who is not exactly keeping up with the Nature's Prophet, but 6 last hits, not exactly terrible when you're up against a Drought or a Nature's Prophet. Alright, is it really that important for this Jakiro to really hit his farm, or, you know, just getting levels is going to be enough for him?
And offlane Jakiro is a new concept to me, but, you know, the thing that really defines Jakiro is that he scales really well with levels, and he helps his team take objectives in the mid-game. And Nature's Prophet sort of this a lane dominator to begin with. I'm pretty sure Nature's Prophet will win this lane almost like... Oh, is Zabba going to take a lot of damage?
Yeah, he's going to take a lot of damage from that Splinter Blast, as well as the charge coming in from Kyle. It'll, in fact, be First Blood for Z-Freak. They get this kill on Oped, and that's, you know, the early stymieing of Oped that they're looking for. And now up top, you get a fissure with the dual breath. They're not going to be able to stop this TP. They'll just push him all the way back. The Treant's doing an amazing job at blocking Moomiander.
Moo actually has his TP again, so he's going to go for a kill here.
Yeah.
Decides against it.
There's the salve. We'll get him high enough, and Moomiander will be able to stay in lane. But that was almost so close to him going down just because Treant blocks and tower damage.
So, you know, Complexity, they get a pretty good gank on Meepo. Because of sort of this gap in vision coming out from DC. There's really no one scouting their jungle. There's no wards in their jungle, so Spirit Breaker and Wyvern have been free to move around. That being said, you know, from my experience playing against Meepo and watching Meepo games... Actually, Mojo's gonna go down top, maybe?
Yeah, nice.
My experience from watching Meepo games, like, it's never enough to just kill him once. You sort of have to take the jungle away from him and his team in order to truly shut him down.
And they might be able to do that again. They've got Moomiander nearby, as Z-Freak was trying to be a little bit aggressive, but now forced to use that Arcane Curse, get over the fissure, pop himself back. Will not stop him from harassing Oped just once with that Arcane Curse attack.
And Complexity, you know, they don't really have a net worth lead right now. It's pretty much even. I'm sure Chessie really isn't in the position that he wants to be right now. He's sort of being pressured a lot in this bottom lane, especially with his 2 supports moving around. And perhaps, you know, Swollen Melons and Z-Freak roaming around the mid lane is hurting them more than it's benefiting the Complexity lineup, since this Drow is actually going to be in a position to die here. Moomiander's wrapping around.
Yeah, and so is Oped, but you take a look over bottom, the fissure landing Chessie on the wrong side. So now let's take a look back over mid. They were looking like they were going to set up on this Meepo, but now the charge coming through all the way on a Moomiander. He actually stops it just a moment before. You've got Mason, Bulba, and Moomiander ready to counter any aggression coming in from the Spirit Breaker. And in the second I look away from mid, they use the Dream Coil. They get the kill on Meepo. And it's an easy kill for both Z-Freak and Limp as they get their lead up to 2-0 in kills.
I mean, you know, that kill is quite huge for them because it gets a little bit of the XP on the puck, which means the puck will be in a better position to help his Drow catch up in the game, especially since Mu is already doing quite well in the top lane. But as I say that, there's a little bit of rotation happening up top. Spirit Breaker's charging in. Looks like Drow Ranger's TPing in, and Mu looks like he's baiting himself right now.
So the Jakiro nearby. The Dual Breath actually comes out onto Mu. He'll immediately TP back as there's the Gust as well as the charge coming in from Kyle and Chessie counter respectively. There'll be one more shot from Chessie to get the kill. They look towards Bulba. Should be another one in Complexity. Seem to just be cleaning up. They look towards Moomiander, who might have put himself in the bad spot, and he'll die as well. So 3 kills here for the side of Complexity. They now lead 5-0.
Yeah, and that's the lead that Complexity you need. So, you know, as I mentioned in the draft, in order to really shut down a Meepo or shut down a timing-oriented lineup in general, you sort of have to shut down not the Meepo himself, but DC's team, because now DC aren't in a position to defend. Let's see if it goes down. DC aren't in a position to defend if Complexity decide to group up and start knocking down towers. So we'll see if Complexity decide to do that and how effective they are.
Meanwhile, I just looked at the Winter Wyvern. I've been doing this for too many hours in a row. I just called Winter Wyvern's Arctic Burn Arcane Curse. Oh no.
Rip.
Oh no.
Okay, one more series to go.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine. And so, you know, Meepo's... So Puck's top net worth, right? Meepo's second highest net worth.
Yeah.
Abed really hasn't been hurt. Like, realistically speaking, you know, even though he's been killed twice, he's still able to farm these waves, still able to farm the jungle, and so, you know, Abed, I think his item timings will be fine. Really, the question is whether or not Complexity will hit their stride before Abed.
And you see me.
So smoke up top from 2 supports. Moving up to Chessie in the top lane.
Seems like you usually see Meepo top of the net worth, especially when he gets that early aggression, and actually a Fissure as well as an Ice Path comes out. Maybe 2 stuns you really don't want to stack, because that gives the opportunity for Complexity to get themselves a couple in the retreat of DC, and they get themselves at least 1 in MSS, another one in Bulba. They just hit so hard with this aura coming in from Chessie.
Also a double damage on Limp, and so here's Complexity's timing, or here's their opening. They're gonna start pushing down towers. You know, DC are gonna feel pressured. Probably a discussion that's happening with their team right now is like, can we actually defend these towers? Because, you know, there's 2 things going on here. First, they want to make space for the Meepo, but second of all, they're against a Drow lineup, and playing against Drow lineup also requires sort of a specific playstyle where your team's actually either break even or ahead coming out of the laning phase, and your heroes are well configured to sort of counter pressure or defend the towers against the Complexity lineup. But Meepo's not a hero that wants to fight early. In fact, Meepo probably doesn't want to fight until he has at least 2 items, like a Diffusal, Dragonlance, or Blink. So, you know, DC are probably stuck just trying to get as much out of the map as possible while their Meepo gets farmed.
Yeah, like I was saying, you usually see Meepo at the top of the net worth, especially this early on. He's behind almost 1,000 gold to this puck. He's already got that Veil and now starting towards that Blink Dagger.
And so, you know, both teams are just sort of taking some breathing room right now, trying to assess the situation, see what kind of opening they spot next, because... You know, Olymp has done his Veil, he's working on his Blink, and that Blink will make him a lot better in these fights. And actually, Abed's going for a little bit of an aggressive play on the...
Going for this play on the move, but had missed that Earthbind. Meanwhile, you take a look as the charge comes in. Abed might be in a little bit of trouble. Now with the Dream Coil on top of him, the Waning Rift to silence him up. They'll take him out one more time. Mason, he's forced to use that time-lapse. Maybe they can find one in return, but... it's not looking promising as both Kyle and Z-Freak are starting to run away. The Dual Breath will slow up the Spirit Breaker, but there's no chase on for the side of DC.
So a nice escape from Mu there, and also a great counter initiation from Complexity nets them a kill. But at the same time, I feel like I've been sort of messed up there. He definitely had an Earthbind on his second meepo.
And you take a look now, Bulba, he's going to be taken out by Limp. That's another kill for Complexity, now a 4,000 net worth lead. They're looking further towards this Jakiro, the ulti used by Spirit Breaker. One more hit down, and Complexity, they extend that lead even further. Now up 10-1. They are going to charge in on Mason over bottom. No dust for this Spirit Breaker, so Mason should be okay with 3 of these heroes rotating.
And so, you know, similar to game 1, Complexity, they managed to have the better laning setup in the early game. I mean, their lanes are much easier, you know, Nature's Prophet against Shakiro, Puck with Drow Aura against Meepo, and so, you know, in the mid lane, actually, Moo's taking a lot of damage.
Might actually fall to Op-Ed, and it's the first kill coming in here for the Meepo. 1-3-1 to start. He's got a third Meepo. Mason coming over. Might not be the move for Z-Freak to continue forward, as Mason, he's trying to be effective in this game, and now the charge is coming out on him. One more shot will do it. Mason gets the kill, but he's got to get at a dodge, as coming in is this Spirit Breaker.
Right before the exchange, I was going to say Complexity were sort of on track to win, but it looks like DC are also putting in a good fight. I mean, those kills are extremely critical for them. DC need to slow down Complexity's item progression as much as possible while accelerating their own. And, you know, DC, even though they're 3k net worth behind, yeah, the game is totally winnable for them. I think Meepo does extremely well against the cores of Complexity. So if Complexity aren't careful and they, you know, give up a few kills or here and there again, I think it'll put DC in like a more comfortable position than Complexity, because Complexity, you know, their lineup sort of requires them to snowball. So I think DC is also aware of that.
With the constant threat of a push, the constant threat of this early fighting from Complexity, is there a moment where maybe we'll see Complexity fall off heavily and DC really start to turn this game?
Yeah, I think the timing for DC is going to be the blink on Meepo. I think Abba's going to work on that Diffusal Blade first, but immediately after pick up the blink, which means that if he blinks in on a hero like Puck, Drow, or Nature's Prophet, followed up by Global Silence, it's really hard for Complexity to initiate, especially when I think their only real hard counter to Meepo is the Winter's Curse coming out from Z-Freak, and you know, this Wyvern's not going to have like an anti-silence mechanic for a really long time, so that gives DC sort of this upper hand going into the mid-late game.
They'll look to take this tier 3. Already for the side of Complexity, they're pushing with those creeps, pushing with those treants. Just seems like the pressure is on from Complexity. They've taken out the outer tower's bottom. They'll work towards getting the tier 1 and grab it. As well as top, it's heavy pressure onto the side of DC. Not too sure where the answer comes from.
Certainly, but you know, DC, they're trying to get as much over the map as possible. I think DC understand that if Complexity are grouped up, DC would prefer not to fight, because it's not easy for their Meepo to enter these engagements, so DC would much rather try to split push, farm, get pickoffs here and there, like we see Meepo or we see Abed going for these kills on Mu, and sort of just stall as much time as possible while DC hit their timing.
Didn't know how reliable it was.
They're going to charge in on Mason, get the dust, throw the ulti, Ice Path on top of that. Mason taken out by 3 heroes here. And on top of all that, they get the kill on the Earthshaker over top with the ulti thrown by Mu. So 2 kills go the way of Complexity, looking for an opportunity to push again. Jakiro, he's going to be the next one to fall, as well as Bulba. So a double kill now, this time for Limp, and Complexity up 14-3.
I don't know if that was sort of a misplay from Bulba, but I don't know if Bulba was expecting Mason to sort of drop there. But if Bulba used his Global Silence, there definitely could have been a counter initiation from DC, and they might have been able to turn that fight. But instead, you know, DC they bleed 4 kills, and it just puts Complexity further ahead. That being said, you know, Abed's getting closer to his blink, but you know, by the time he hits blink, if his team is not in a position to help him, then it's still quite a difficult game for Meepo.
It's an 8,000 net worth lead right now. At what point is it just too much?
You know, it's hard to say because DC, they're also really capable of going for pickoffs, so it just depends on how Complexity use this net worth lead. No, Mason's just super far behind now, but now I think it's going to be Abed's turn to sort of bring his team back into this game.
Now a 9,000 net worth lead here. We take a look at what Complexity's bringing to the table in Mask of Madness, looking for that pike on the Drow Rangers. Chessie. Nature's Prophet Moo having an alright game at 2-1-5. He's got a 4-staff of his own. And then finally, let's take a look at the last core Limp with that Veil. Now the Aegis looking for the Yules. For the side of DC, pretty much anyone except for Oped's not having that great of a game. Diffusal level 2. Looking for that Blink next, and then next after him is Mason, who really doesn't have all too much.
Yeah, and that Aegis really gives Complexity sort of two really big things. First, it gives them the Aegis themselves, but also, you know, if Abed gets this Aegis on Meepo, it's actually really difficult for Complexity to deal with a Meepo, especially if you kill him twice, and your best solution to him is the Winter's Curse. So, you know, it's a good play from Complexity to take the Aegis there, and we'll see if they manage to get anything with it. I think this Yule's timing is going to be really big on this puck, because without the Yules, you can't phase shift during the Earthbind, and so that Yules will give Limp a lot of extra survivability against the DC lineup, including against the Global Silence as well.
So just continuing to farm now, extending it to an 11,000 net worth lead is Complexity. Seems like they're really waiting on the side of DC for that Blink Dagger, which Oped is working towards. He's got one Meepo over in this jungle on the side of Complexity, 2 working on cleaning up bottom. Really just trying to find as much farm as he can, and
I think Moon Meander is going to get caught here.
Yeah, and that's going to be with the ulti from Moo. Meanwhile, Bulba goes down as well. 2 die again. It just seems like when DC dies, they die in pairs.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a feed session from DC, and their supports are like not farmed at all, so they're just dying to random Nature's Prophet ultis and random charges, so, you know, DC clearly aren't where they want to be. Complexity definitely in the winning position now, and there's even a 4-staff coming up on this Nature's Prophet. He has it as well.
Actually, Moo might be in a little bit of trouble as Oped's trying for the kill. The Earthbind's gonna miss. These treants really blocking the way. They'll TP back, but you take a look as the Meepo's now in the jungle. I don't know if Oped was paying attention to both fights happening, but Complexity, they managed to take out the Meepos in the jungle, killing off Oped and extending that lead to 12,000.
Yeah, it was a really cool movement from Complexity to sort of bait Moo there while charging Abed in the jungle, so they get a quick kill on him. They should be able to take out another tier 2 top if they make a rotation from it, and DC aren't nearly in a position to stop Complexity from pushing.
So Moo just continuing to bring the pressure onto these towers, works on this tier 2 without Oped for 10 seconds, really is able to just freely push away. And he'll be able to solo take this tier 2 while DC, they kind of posture up over towards the tier 3, but nobody else is following up this Nature's Prophet, and in fact, he's already moving back, so not like he's going to continue to push forward.
Yeah, something else interesting to note is that DC, they don't have any heroes that can safely push out the waves, just because there's a Spirit Breaker on the enemy team, and also, you know, Meepo and Weaver. There's a lot of threat to them this game, especially with a Blink. With high mobility heroes coming from Complexity, like the Nature's Prophet and Puck, and so, you know, Complexity are always going to have the map control advantage, especially if they do a good job of keeping the lanes out, and it's easy for them because they have a Nature's Prophet and Puck. So, you know, DC, they're going to have very few opportunities to go for ganks on Complexity, because Complexity can always position themselves a lot better than DC can. And so, you know, DC 14k net worth behind on map control. This is like a really steep battle for them back into the game, but it is very possible, just because Meeple's one of those heroes that has such a high damage output that he can pretty much go for a pickoff on any of Complexity's heroes if the scenario is correct.
So we'll have to see how they handle it, and Meepo now looking towards that blink, about 150 gold away. And we see a charge coming up top on Bulba. He might be in a little bit of trouble, maybe trying to hide in the trees. There's the Arcane Curse. Calling that one right, and now the ulti follows it up from Kyle. It's a solo kill for a Spirit Breaker.
Yeah, really good control of vision from Complexity there. They even find out that there's ward there because, you know, Bulba reacted to the charge a little bit suspiciously, and so Complexity are doing a really good job of sort of keeping DC in their base. You see even Abed sort of stuck in his base instead of doing what Meepos usually want to do, which is cut waves and farm the jungle.
Seems like whenever you see a team corralled in their base, there's just nothing they can do with this kind of deficit except really hope for a really good high ground defense. And they're waiting on Complexity to come to them, and Complexity doesn't really have to make that move.
Yeah, you're right. Complexity doesn't have to make that move. In fact, I imagine they're waiting for some big items on their heroes while they wait for Roshan, because, you know, Complexity aren't really in a position to have to jump the gun. They've kept DC in their base, so DC's farm isn't going to go anywhere. I mean, normally when you're playing against Meepo, you might be worried that, you know, he's gonna get farmed to this point where he's just gonna take out your entire team or be able to go for solo kills everywhere. But, you know, I think Complexity are fairly confident in the current position they're in, so they're just splitting up, making sure that DC can't make any big movements. So if anyone gets caught, it's just going to be Z-Freak in the sign lane, and
they don't even get him.
Not actually. Yeah, you can tell DC's playing super scared right now, right? And they played super scared for the last 10 minutes, I'd say, so they've just slowly fall behind, especially because, you know, Complexity's heroes are so good at taking advantage of farm as it appears on the map. You know, Chessie's been doing Ancient's been doing this rotation around the right side of the map, and Boo and Limp have been keeping the lanes out, so Complexity really aren't feeling pressured to make anything happen at all. You know, they're just going to continue to farm, continue to go for pickoffs wherever possible, and try to win the game off of the second Roshan.
So Roche may respawn in 50 seconds. Complexity, they're willing to wait for that. To the look, Spirit Breaker going for that Shadow Blade. Limp over here with Yule's Boots of Travel, Blink Veil. He's so farm top of the net worth. See if maybe DC can find themselves a fourth kill.
You see Limp even picked up Boots of Travels to help him sort of assist his team in these global gank efforts, and they might actually won't catch Mason here. And, you know, DC's doing what they can. They're planting ward vision around Roche, because this second Roche, I think, will really determine where this game goes. You know, if Complexity get this Roshan, I think they automatically win the game as they don't screw anything up. And if DC get the Aegis, then, you know, they keep themselves in the game for another 10 to 13 minutes, or maybe even just 5 minutes. But, you know, I think both teams are just sort of posturing themselves on the left side of the map right now, waiting for that Roshan to spawn.
Yeah, it seems like DC's last hope is taking this Aegis, and it, you know, be a boost in net worth for the Meepo, which he desperately needs. It would be a chunk cut from the Complexity net worth lead of 20,000 net worth.
Yeah, and a lot of this net worth advantage is coming from the fact that, you know, Complexity's heroes, as I mentioned earlier, they're so efficient at moving around the map and farming. You know, you've got heroes pretty much getting farm in all three lanes and the jungle. You know, Z-Freak's been farming a lane, Swindle Mounds has been farming the lane, and the other three heroes have sort of just been rotating between jungles and lanes. And so DC, you know, they're really only getting farm on one hero right now. Mason's farm isn't really going to accelerate anywhere for a while. Abed's been basically just getting creep waves as they come to his base, so Complexity quickly mounting a higher and higher net worth advantage.
And just about 20,000. Roche up in about 15 seconds. Spirit Breaker coming in on Mason. Dream Coil is gonna miss, so now Complexity might press the escape key and try to get out of here. But no chase really put on from DC. Not really much confidence to chase down so much.
So I think DC's game plan right now is to play around these wards and sort of wait for Complexity to show an opening where they can use that blink on the Meepo and use the global silence to go for a quick pick off, especially on on one of Complexity's cores. And I think that's where DC's game plan is headed right now.
Spirit Breaker looking to charge top. A errant ice path is going to come through, nowhere near the Spirit Breaker.
Yeah, so Swindle Mountains has a Shadow Blade on the Spirit Breaker, so you know, MSS saw that the creeps got hit by the charge, but didn't quite know what the positioning of the Spirit Breaker was.
So let's see if DC can make anything happen. It seems like they're throwing these ice paths, throwing their fissures into no man's land. And this is the opportunity they're going to have to try and maybe start cutting into this net worth lead of Complexity. As Complexity in and out of the Roche pit just continue to cut away at it, hoping that maybe DC overstep themselves.
Yeah, but Complexity sort of have the advantage in this scenario because they have a hero like Nature's Prophet that can continue to push out the bottom lane and then rejoin the fight with ease, right? You'll see that this bottom Rax is taking a lot of damage, and if DC come back to defend it, then Complexity are just going to re-enter the pit. So this is sort of a win-win situation for Complexity right now. In fact, you'll see Limp making some crazy moves.
Actually head over towards Moomiander as well as the rest of this team. They get the Global Silence coming out. They might get this kill onto the Spirit Breaker. They'll get at least one, which in itself is still worth quite a bit of gold, but you're now giving up the Jakiro. MSS is going to drop to Limp. They look for possibly more in the Silencer as Limp moves on forward. Gets a double kill, and he's godlike, so it looked okay for DC, but then losing two.
Check out the Roche pit.
Probably losing this Roche as well, but Alped is here just trying to fight up against this Drow as well as the Nature's Prophet. I don't think he's going to be able to do so easily, and that Meepo just taken out with ease. There's nobody here to help him out. Complexity, they take that kill as well. And now they work on Roche. Echo Slam from Moomiander trying for a last-ditch effort, but it just doesn't look like it's going to be enough. And he will fall here too.
Yeah, I mean, both the Meepo and the Earthshaker that are going in was sort of a last-ditch effort that clearly didn't work out. And maybe it would have worked out if they went in together, but, you know, I think those DC heroes just understood that this Aegis sort of spelled the end of their game, because, you know, Complexity are now in a position to win. It's really tough to kill this Drow Ranger and the Cheese Holder, which is Limp twice, so... You know, I imagine as soon as Complexity regroup, they get the lanes out, and then they start to push this mid racks. And they actually did lose their bottom racks. I didn't notice that, but you know, that puts Complexity in a much better position when it comes to getting the lanes out as well.
Yeah, Complexity just playing the perfect game. They have almost a 30,000 net worth lead, which is almost the entire net worth of DC. So their lead is just immense, and they're, you know, down this much. It's never over till it's over, but it just looks very grim for the side of DC.
It's a really tough game for DC right now. I imagine they have to win at least like 2 or 3 team fights in a row in order to balance this net worth deficit. And Complexity, they're actually set up here to kill Mason. Do they see him?
Yeah, they do. They've got a Sentry Ward. They get the ulti in from the Spirit Breaker, taken out immediately. They don't even need the Dream Coil that was placed on top of him. He's dead for 50 seconds without buyback. You take a look as the Spirit Breaker tries to get out, but again, DC, there's not really much they can do to throw back at this Complexity lineup.
I can see these towers are just going to melt to the Drow Ranger, and also the Maelstrom Winter Wyvern.
I didn't even notice that, but Maelstrom on the Winter Wyvern. They'll take out the mid-tier 3 Limp, going in deep again, trying to push back Op-Ed. Will successfully do so, and now they've got the melee racks. They're looking for more. Moomiander are going to be in a little bit of trouble as the charge comes in from the Spirit Breaker. First hit bash, because why not? And Z-Freak with another kill. He's got that Maelstrom, so he is hitting really hard, actually.
Complexity have the mid lane of Rax, and there's really nothing stopping them from getting this last lane. So DC, they sort of have to pull off a miracle of a team fight to to win this.
Yeah, BKB is going to be popped. Meanwhile, they've got Bulba. You take a look. Time-lapse used by Mason. They still spot him. The ulti to keep him nearby. You've got a Winter Wyvern hitting for 303 damage. And there's really nothing they can do as they're going to lose this Jakiro. They get a nice Echo Slam and do end up getting a kill on the puck, but that's Winter's Curse locking in both the Weaver and Moomiander. Kyle just charging in, hitting away, and it looks as though they might get another Hattie gotten a bash. Mason trying to fight back. It's just a really a hard-fought battle from DC, but it just doesn't look like it's coming their way.
You know, they get 2 quick kills in exchange for global and buyout, but you know, it just really stalls the inevitable. But they do survive for now. Complexity, they have 2 lanes of racks, you know, over 30k net worth ahead. And I feel like at this point, it's really difficult for Abbott to get anything done on this Meepo. Realistically, if DC were to fight back in this scenario...
There it is, they're just going to tap out there. DC! They call GG. Complexity win this series 2-0. Really just putting the slamming onto DC in this series.
Yeah, I felt like Complexity, they drafted themselves away to sort of win the lanes and then win the mid-game scenario, right? They had DC completely shut down out of the early game all the way until late game, and then off of the advantage they had built and off of the heroes they had drafted, they just gave DC nothing to accomplish on that map, and as a result, you know, they slowly just starved out DC's farm. And then by the time DC was ready to fight, Complexity was so far ahead that it was basically impossible for DC to get anything done.
Yeah, Complexity playing a perfect game once again. You know, maybe we would have liked something a little bit more exciting, and I don't know if that's just a glitch or it's probably just because he sold everything, but Op-Ed ends with 2 Midases and 3 Gloves of Haste. It just... DC didn't have the answers to this aggression from Complexity that they brought early on, and Complexity in both games looked so stellar. It just, you know, it wasn't exciting, but it was clean, and it was perfect from Complexity. And they win this
Complexity, you know, they knew exactly what kind of lineup they wanted. They had all of the answers for DC's draft, and then, you know, they just played their lanes so well that DC didn't really have any openings to make their lineup and their draft work.
Yeah, so Complexity take this series 2-0. They qualify for Perfect World Masters via the NA qualifiers. And that's it here from myself, BCop, at BCop92 on Twitter. I'm joined here by Franz, at HelloFranz on Twitter. Follow us to know when we're casting, know when we're streaming and all that. Thank you guys for watching. Really do appreciate it. And I'll be seeing you guys hopefully soon. Again, thanks for watching.
Hey, yo, lesson here, baby.
like, what the fuck? But hey, just never on Sunday, man.
Missy, gushy, gushy, gushy.